Excuse me. All right. This is L. Nathan here. Welcome you to our program, Living for the People. Welcome you to our broadcast focused on providing insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. Now, of course, our program is live, so you can call and you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're normally here with Norm McCarter, who is our in-studio audience of one, but he's taken all that money that he's collected in the world and gone on vacation on us for the next 7 days. So we won't see him until Wednesday or Friday of next week. But a shout out to him and much luck for him and much fortune for him and his family on their vacation. We're here with Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome, Willie. We can barely hear you. Are you talking into the mic?
Can you hear me now?
There you are.
Yeah, it was off. Please forgive me today, guys. No streaming today. The internet's having problems, so we only gonna record the show. Whoever's live on the radio, you can hear us, but we'll have the show on YouTube and Facebook later. So
we're victims of technology failure?
Yep, the internet's not working.
Is that like the AI that is supposed to help you to catch criminals?
Yeah, there's always problems. There's always some problem.
I know that what probably marked it was, she was pregnant, 8 months, and she was a black woman, and she was walking around as if she was free. Those are markers for she should have been arrested 7 days ago. Good heavens! I mean, that story was just way off the charts.
Yeah, it's when people don't care, and I find that the world is getting worse and worse. I mean, even at work, I'm seeing things that happen that, like, somebody caring for kids now look like a pedophile if they enjoy, playing, working with kids. So everything is changing. It's like,
See, so all of this, hullabaloo about, well, we're in a new world, we're stuck with our cell phones and our little TVs that walk around in our hands and whatnot. Like, that's got to be the future. That doesn't have to be the future.
Right.
That's a future that you're choosing. It's not a future that you have to have.
Right.
If people being so focused in on Reddit and Breitbart and Stormfront and these kinds of websites that are their sources for news that really have no credibility as news sources at all, we should be attacking that. I mean, not attacking in the sense of armed insurrection, but we should be railing at that, in our media. We should be saying, you all should be careful about, taking your information from sources like this. Here's why. Take an example of something that's in, say, Breitbart, their website, and they're saying something that you know is not true. What you do is you go to the places that will tell you what the truth is, whether it's the National Health Information Services or the Department of Commerce or the Department of Labor, whoever the source is of the actual data. Go there, get the information, and then tell people Breitbart or Stormfront, whoever it is, they're out here saying blah, blah, blah. But here's what the truth is. And if they say, well, we don't believe in those sources, well, you believed in those sources 2 years ago. You believed in those sources when you were in control of the presidency. Why would you not believe in the same sources that in other words, you got to be comparing apples to apples and whatnot. And that's the way that we need to talk about this stuff. You don't want to rail against free speech because free speech is a part of the structure, the ideological, moral, and systemic structure of the United States that makes possible the kind of democracy that exists in the United States. If you didn't have the ability for people to exchange ideas, even if they're wrong ideas, if you didn't have the ability to do that, we would become a country that would be sort of a herd mentality kind of a country where, you get some Papa Doc person like the guy in Venezuela. You can't even unelect this guy. He's just Idi Amin, like Uganda, Idi Amin for life, and so on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about free speech as we start today's program, Will, because the issues that seem to be being used by the former President Donald Trump's team is the idea that the things that he did were just were just expressions of free speech. You know, when he says that I lost the election, he said, well, it's my free speech. Even if I'm wrong, I have the right to say it, you know, and if I say that there were, you know, tens of thousands of examples of misconduct, you know, where ballot boxes got stuffed, you know, where ballots were destroyed, you know, where dead people voted, where 3 million illegal aliens voted, you know, and so on. These are things that Trump said. He said, so I said those things. That's free speech.
Right.
Now, we need to talk about what free speech actually is so we understand what it is that we're saying when that term is being used. But I want us to understand that there are boundaries around free speech. All free speech is not free. In other words, you can't say anything at any time. Now, I'll frame this in just a second. Just go to Wikipedia and look, just type in free speech, and you'll see a paragraph will come up that goes basically like this. Categories of speech that are given lesser or no protection by the First Amendment and therefore may be restricted. Those categories of speech that can be restricted include obscenity, fraud. Do we think Donald Trump committed fraud? Okay, for all of you that think that, that's something that can be regulated under the free speech provision of the Constitution. Child pornography can be regulated. Speech integral to illegal conduct. Speech where you talk to somebody and say, listen, I think that we can get into the vault, you know, over on Main and whatever it is, Mohawk Street. You know, there's a door on the side of the building that nobody watches. And I think that we can just take a little blowtorch and blow the lock off that door, go in there and raid the vault, and we can get out. I just need for you, and you to come with me to get this done. All of those are words. Right. But they're not protected free speech because you were using that speech to promote the commission of a crime. You can't use free speech to commit a crime, right?
Ah, okay.
So it's important that we understand that speech that incites imminent lawless action is not free speech. I'm pretty sure the arguments that we're dealing with Donald Trump right now is that he used his speech to incite imminent lawless action. That's why 6,000 people bum rushed the Capitol building in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
Because Donald Trump said, let's go. I'm going to go with you, even though he was lying when he said that. but let's go. I'm going to go with you, you know, and, you know, we gotta be strong. We got to fight like hell. Let's go. So he rallied people, and he had been inciting people for weeks, literally months before then.
And he knew what he was doing.
Exactly.
He knew what he was doing.
Exactly. I just want you to understand how free speech applies to this, right? I'm not giving you opinions. This is what the law says. Commercial speech or true threats are not free speech. If you threaten to kill somebody and then you begin to take actions along the path towards the killing, even if you don't actually kill the person, the speech that you gave announcing that you were going to kill somebody, that's illegal speech. You can't just say anything, right?
Right.
You can say a lot of things, though. You can say that this person's mother was an orange-headed, you know, squirrel who had buck teeth, even though she might not be a squirrel. It might not have buck teeth. And it could be despicable, and it might even be libelous, right? But it's not illegal free speech.
Right.
If you said somebody was a squirrel and they had buck teeth and they were orange-headed and you were going to chop their head off, and then you went and got an axe and started heading towards that person's house, hopefully they catch you before you got there.
Right.
Those words you used were not free speech.
Right.
That was illegal speech.
It's going to be used to incriminate you now.
Exactly. Commercial speech such as advertising obviously can be regulated. You can't use advertising to say things that are patently untrue. You can't say if you take this pill, it's going to grow you 2 horns on the backside of your head that you can ride, on your way to the rodeo.
I think that's on social network now. That they use that all the time. They claim every product could do everything.
Everything.
And me, like a sucker, I buy into it and find out that doesn't work.
See, they used to do that, in the 19th century when we didn't have them, as supposedly we had more sense or had less sense than we have right now. But they used to have these tonics. These guys that run around, these barnstormers, right?
I see them on movies.
Take this tonic. It'll cure cancer. It'll cure your cold. It'll do everying.
Matter of fact, I'm feeling like a sucker right now. I just bought something for $50, hoping that it helps me with my diet.
Yeah, I'm hoping that your girlfriend smacks you as really hard as she can. And not with the back side of her hand, with the front side of her hand.
Well, the one thing I got to say, Mr. Hare, I'm frustrated because I'm not losing weight as much, but I see my stomach coming down. My shirt's a lot looser, so something is happening.
The tonic had nothing to do with it.
Tonic had nothing to do
Eating less had something to do with it. Okay?
Eating less, working more. That's what it had to do with it.
Take a 3-mile walk every day.
Yeah.
You do
that'll
that.
do it. Yeah.
Drink a lot of water. Let that water replace some of the calorie intake that you normally have. And
you're right.
Your weight will come down.
Yeah, okay? Right. I mean, you're right. I did that, and it has worked.
So the last piece of free speech, what controls free speech, defamation that causes harm to reputation is a tort crime and is an exception to free speech. In other words, if you say something that defames another person, you say that person is a liar, or you say that person is a cretin, or you say that person is a molester, and those are untrue statements, and they malign a person, but that does not violate free speech. It may turn into a crime, a tort crime, where you could be charged with libel against somebody.
Right.
But the speech itself is not considered to be a crime.
Right.
I think we have a caller hanging on.
Yeah, we got a caller.
Let me grab that call real quick. Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, Norm, how you doing there, brother?
Sir, doing very well.
So are you riding the surfway, the surf and a surfboard out there?
Man, I'm just trying to relax a little bit. I'm in D.C. But I just wanted to say I enjoyed the show. Mr. Hare, man, you guys are great, man. And while I was on the train yesterday, got a lot of publicity.
Okay.
People were kind of listening. And when the name Mr. Hare, it resonated when they heard that name, and they were ready to roll, ready to jump on, man.
Well, that's good to hear.
Real quick call and love you guys, and I'll be listening. You guys have a great show. That's
all right. Thanks, Norm.
Oh man, not at all.
God bless. Safe travels and good luck. Hope everything works out well all the way through and stay away from those police in Jacksonville, Mississippi.
Oh,
yeah. They have issues, right?
No doubt about that.
Yeah, just avoid them. Avoid the entire area. Right?
Yes, sir. No doubt.
Excellent. Talk to you soon.
You guys be blessed. Have a great day. See you
later.
All
right. Thank you.
All right, no.
Bye.
And so, in this case of Wisconsin versus Mitchell, this was talked about hate speech. And it says that hate crime sentence enhancements do not violate First Amendment protections because they do not criminalize the speech itself, but rather they use speech as evidence of the motivation that a person had that caused them to commit a crime. So in other words, you could say you despise, all African people. That's just the way you are. It's how I roll. I don't like African people. But that by itself does not put you in legal jeopardy. If you stabbed an African person after you had said to somebody else, I can't stand African people, I hate them, I'm going to kill one of them. Then you stab one when you saw one. Now you can turn the crime of assault into a hate crime by taking the speech that you gave that explains or gives a context into why you committed the crime that you committed. So if hate is a part of the motivation of your crime, and you evidence that hate through records of your previous speech, that speech can be punished as a part of a hate crime. It's not the speech itself that's being punished. It's the motivation to do something that was an illegal motivation for doing something. Does that make sense the way I said that?
Yeah, I guess this makes sense.
So let's talk a little bit about, the case that's in front of us right now, the last indictment that Trump has now had to endure. This case is being heard in front of a judge, Tanya S. Chutkan. I think we talked about her a little bit on Monday. And just a little bit of facts about her. She was born in Jamaica. I have love for that because I'm a second-generation Jamaican. Chutkan received her bachelor's degree in economics from the George Washington University. She graduated from the University of Pennsylvania Law School. She worked in private practice for 3 years before joining the District of Columbia Public Defender Service. So she's worked as a public defender before. And she also worked as a trial attorney and was a supervisor for over 10 years. She then joined the law firm of Boyes, Schiller, and Flexner, a limited liability partnership, and specialized in litigation and white-collar criminal defense for 12 years. After that, she was appointed by President Barack Obama to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia in 2014. So Judge Chutkan has at least 30 years of experience either practicing before the bar or actually being the judicial officer of the bar. She has 30 years of experience. I want to compare that with Eileen Cannon, the judge in Florida, who got the case against Donald Trump in Florida. Eileen Cannon, who has, I think, 4 years of experience, of which none was as a judge, or maybe a year was as a judge. I'm not sure what. She has no trial experience at all. Never prepared a brief for a trial. She's just one of the how shall I say it, the people that have been involved with the Federalist Society that have been anointed that, if we have a chance to appoint somebody, we're going to appoint you because we know that you're going to rule the way that we want to see rulings go. That's who Eileen Cannon is. But in the case of Chutkan, it's important to understand that she did not win this case. She was not appointed to the case. She was, in their system, cases come up on a wheel. So when the next case comes up for the federal court, if you're the next person on the wheel, you get that case. The only thing that would stop you from getting that case is if you were physically unable to do the work, or you had some conflict of interest in that case. And so Chutkan doesn't have that. This is important because Chutkan has set tougher sentences than requested by the Justice Department in a number of cases involving January 6th defendants, citing the necessity of consequences for taking part in the insurrection. These are her words. She says, quote, there have to be consequences for participating in an attempted violent overthrow of the government beyond just sitting at home. She denied Trump's 2021 emergency motion to stop the National Archives from turning over his administration's records to the January 6th committee. So she's shown herself to be, how shall I say, sensitive to the, you would think would be the interest of the United States to be protected from citizens attempting to overthrow the United States. She showed some sensitivity to the government's perspective on that. And apparently the Republicans feel like, well, why are you acting like you're on the side of the government? You should be on the side of the Republican Party, not on the side of the government. That's what we have going on right now. I want to talk a little bit as we go further on this thought that the issue that's being put forward by the Republicans and, of course, Donald Trump's defense team is that everything that Donald Trump did is covered under the label of free speech. Even the actions that he took were actions that are covered under the label of free speech. Now, I'm pretty sure most of us understand that actions are not the same thing as speech. If I say I don't like you, that's one thing. If I stab you, that's something else, right? Willie, am I on the right page here?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So that's like almost everybody understands that. Even the dumb people understand that, right?
Right.
So the issue that they're trying to push is that Donald Trump is being attacked for exercising his free speech rights in this country, and that they're asserting that you can't prove that Trump had corrupt intent, that he did not, that you can't prove that he intended to cause a harm to the United States, and the harm would be, disrupting the process of the government. The harm would be preventing the transition of the government from one administration to the next. The harm would be denying people the right to vote or to have their votes counted. Those things that he's being charged with, they're saying that you have to prove that he had the intent to cause that harm. Not that the harm occurred, but that he Donald Trump had the intent to cause that harm. So I went to an article written by Travis Geddes on this issue. It was on a website called Raw Story, and it says basically there is no need to prove that Trump knew he lost the election to establish corrupt intent. He says the benefit under the statute is the presidency itself. In other words, Trump's objective was to retain the presidency of the United States. That was his objective. That was all the steps that he took were for the goal of retaining the presidency of the United States. That was the benefit. You don't have to prove anything else. The steps that he took were for that purpose, and that purpose was for this benefit. So he goes on to say that a judge has already ruled against one of Donald Trump's likely defenses in the January 6th case. The former president has been charged for his attempt to halt the congressional certification of Joe Biden's 2020 election win, and his legal team insists that he hadn't acted corruptly because he sincerely believed he had won. I sincerely believe that $3 billion that they're holding in a treasury in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that was my money. I sincerely believe it. Why do you believe that, Nate? Well, they got George Washington's picture on it, and I had George Washington's picture on my money. They had Abe Lincoln's picture on some of the money. I got Abe Lincoln's picture on some of my money. You know what I'm saying? The money looks just like my money. That's my money. Now, I can believe that all I want. Are you going to allow me to go and rob a bank in Philadelphia on the basis that I believe that's my money? Of course not. Well, that's what Donald Trump's law team is asserting. So there's no need, according to the article, to prove that Trump knew he lost the election to establish corrupt intent. This is Norman Eisen, a special counsel to the House Judiciary Committee during the first Trump impeachment. He says, quote, "The benefit under this statute is the presidency itself. Trump clearly knew that without his unlawful actions, Congress was going to certify Biden as the winner of the election. That's all the corrupt intent that you need." A federal judge apparently agreed when he wrote an opinion last month in the conviction of Alan Hostetter, one of the January 6th rioters, saying that his belief that the 2020 election was stolen was not a defense to the corrupt element in the obstruction charge. In other words, he could have believed all he wanted and sincerely believed that the 2020 election was stolen. That didn't give him the right to invade the Capitol building. That didn't give him the right to break the windows. It didn't give him the right to take a flagpole and stab a police officer. Didn't give him the right to grab Officer Fanone, drag him down some stairs, throw him on the floor, and stomp on him.
Right.
Didn't give you the right to do that.
Right.
I mean, where were you born that makes you think that there's some place on earth that it's okay to do something like that? Mm-hmm. How can you possibly have thought that that was okay, that that was right, that that was legal for you to do?
Right.
Okay. So, we're being bombarded, by Trump and his sycophants, in the Republican Party with all of these false premises, this free speech stuff, this corrupt intent stuff, and it's just nonsense. The reality is you took actions that were illegal to do something that was illegal, period. That's what took place. And this case should have been solved a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Quoting, I'm sorry, say again?
I say I agree.
Yeah. Quoting the article again, even if Mr. Hofstadter genuinely believed the election was stolen and that public officials had committed treason, that does not change the fact that he acted corruptly with consciousness of wrongdoing. That's in the words of Royce Lamberth, who is a U.S. District Court judge in the District of Columbia. He said, belief in the greater good does not negate consciousness of wrongdoing. I'm hoping that this is something that we don't have to have a whole university education, to get people to understand that you were born knowing this, okay? Just because you want to see something happen that you think is a greater good doesn't give you the right to commit an out-and-out crime. You just can't do that. Lamberth noted that Hofstadter was actually actively cheering on rioters during the insurrection. And the Trump indictment points out that the former president exploited the disruption in a bid to remain in office despite his loss. Appeals court judge Justin Walker also ruled in April that the corrupt element in the Capitol riot case could mean unlawful benefit, which would require prosecutors to simply argue that Trump sought to obtain a benefit to which he was not entitled. And obviously that was remaining president of the United States because he lost the election. That's how we knew that you didn't have the right to retain the presidency, because you lost the election, period. I want to talk a little bit about affirmative action.
We getting ready to go to break. You want to wait?
Oh, yeah. Why don't we do that? Because this affirmative action conversation is intriguing. I hope you'll stay in tune to hear this, right? Because what it's going to talk about is how the actual laws that have been created to overcome or undo crimes that have been done to people on the basis of race, that those laws are now being used to actually undo the actions that were being taken to overcome the crimes of racial discrimination and exploitation that were committed in this country. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Y'all don't go away, but we'll see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan HARE. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here, your host. We're here with Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome back, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan here. You can call in 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104.
Absolutely. We look forward to hearing from you guys. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I called it affirmative actions as opposed to affirmative action. And what I mean by that is affirmative action in the sense that you're taking affirmative steps to accomplish something. Okay?
Now I get it.
Right?
Actions.
Where they've taken affirmative action as if this is some sort of a set-aside program, like almost a quota program.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that, okay, it's clear that is something that they say you can't do. But to say that you can't take affirmative steps, affirmative actions to undo your own history of criminal conduct, of debased conduct. In other words, you have universities across the United States that wouldn't allow an African person to sweep the floor, let alone be enrolled at that university. Those are harms that were done over the course of decades, if not centuries, in this country.
Now, hey, Mr. Hare, let me just say, here's what I've been hearing, and I believe some of it's partly true. But what I've been hearing also is that, all right, affirmative action is one thing, and I've been hearing about black celebrities, but we got to take control. Yes, we know those things are out there that may be against people of color, but we can't harbor, can't stay there. We got to go and do what we have to do, and somehow work with even those. With those things that's out there against us, but we can't, and then we gotta do things like, talking about black fathers being with their children, staying, with their accountable. So things like that. And even from the white audience, like, okay, yeah, we know that there's racism, but you kind of got to get over it. How do you feel about that, sir?
So it's sort of like saying that over the course of the last 250 years, every time I saw you with more than $3 in your pocket, I smacked you in the head and took the $3 out of your pocket. Or whatever you had above $3, I took it out of your pocket. You can never have more than $3 in your pocket. I just made that decision and I enforced it.
Right.
And then one day a light bulb went off in your head and you say, oh, that was immoral. That was a terrible thing I've been doing for the last 350 years. What a terrible guy I am. And so you say, okay, I'm going to stop doing that.
Right.
And I say, well, that's fine that you're going to stop doing that, but what about the money you already took from me? When you give me that money back?
Right.
And so you say, well, I can't give it all back to you at one time because I've invested the money and I've built a whole lifestyle for myself around having your money in my pocket. So.
See, I love the way you put things. That's why I asked that question. Go ahead.
So I got an affirmative action program, okay,
right,
that'll give you a chance to get like 2 or 3 of those dollars every other week. You can get 2 or 3 of those dollars, back into your pocket and whatnot. I can't do it all, at one time.
I can't do it for everybody, but I'll do it for some of you guys.
Definitely can't do it for everybody.
Right.
And so I do it for those people that can prove that they were owned by some enslaver 200 or 150 years ago. If you can prove it, if you got a document, I can put you in the queue. So it's sort of like that, right? If you steal from me, whatever you took from me is mine. It doesn't stop being mine because you stole it from me. It's still mine. So if my great-great-great-grandfather was enslaved on the Bloom plantation in eastern Alabama, if my great-great-grandfather was enslaved on that plantation and his entire life of productivity, all the wealth that he produced by his productivity, the crops he grew
For your family.
For your family.
For your family.
So you got all of the benefit of my great-great-grandfather's work.
Right.
That all went to you, and you're living in the house that you got built based on the wealth produced by my great-great-grandfather. So now I come along and I say, I got a document that proves that your great-great-grandfather was a slave owner, and you had slave owning on my great-great-grandfather. And all of what you took from my great-grandfather, I want back. You have a right to claim that because that's yours. Just like if you had a house, and let's suppose, I bought a house in 1960,
Mm-hmm.
and you took the house from me. You just came in. This is Willie H., the arch, never mind, I won't say what I was going to say. But you took my house in 1960.
Right.
That's 60 or 83 years ago, 63 years ago. You took my house. And now I come back and I go to court and I prove that your great-great-grandfather stole my great-great-grandfather's house.
Right.
And that all your people have been living in my great-great-grandfather's house for the last 63 years.
Right.
That's not right. You need to give me my house back.
Right.
I can go to court, and the court would rule as long as I can prove that this was my great-great-grandfather's house and that I'm his legal heir. I could actually prove that you have to give me back the house or some agreed upon value that would compensate me for the loss of the house, because that's still my property because you got it illegally. You stole it from me.
Right.
Right? Now what they're saying is that, well, I get that, but if the reason why you're advocating for this compensation is because it was black people that were specifically targeted for the crime, you can't undo the crime on the basis of somebody's race, even though you did the crime on the basis of somebody's race. Does that make sense?
Wow, it's a little confusing.
So let's make it less confusing, okay? If the reason why you were stealing my labor, my life, my everything that about me, you stole it, was on the basis of my race.
Right.
To undo what you did and compensate me, you would have to build a program based on my race.
My race, I guess.
Right? Because it was my race that was harmed.
Right.
Right? So you would have to create a program to undo the harm that targeted me and other people of my race.
Right.
But here's what the New America says.
Yeah, I get you now.
Okay.
I'm with you now.
Right. The New America says, this is Caitlin Richardson, not what she's saying, she's the reporter. She wrote this in the Daily Caller. Offensive and troubling, another university hit with civil rights complaint for a program using racial preferences. Here's how it rolls. The University of Nebraska at Lincoln was hit with a civil rights complaint over a program it runs for black filmmakers, creative technologists, and artists. The Black Public Media Residency Program, which was launched in 2022, seeks applications for projects where a person of African descent is in a key creative position. The legal, check out the name of this organization. It's the Legal Insurrection Foundation. That's the name of the organization.
That come against the.
This is the legal. We're the January 6th insurrectionists, but we're the legal ones. They were the illegal ones that bum rushed the Capitol building. Wow. We're the legal ones. We're going to bum rush you in federal district court.
Right.
And so they created something called the Equal Protection Project. And its purpose is to investigate the blatantly discriminatory program. What they're talking about is this Black Public Media Residency Program. Now, I need for you to understand that whites are not being discriminated against this program, or in this program. This is a program that a community-based organization and the University of Nebraska at Lincoln have agreed to do together. So the people who have the technical ability to teach people how to be filmmakers and creative technologists and artists, they're at the University of Nebraska.
Right.
You've got a community-based program that is trying to get more Black people involved in that field.
Right.
So they've created a program that does outreach and case management and so on, helping people to get into that field.
Right.
So they're working with the University of Nebraska so that these African people that this neighborhood community-based program has identified would have a route to be able to get into these fields using the relationship with the University of Nebraska.
Right.
So it's a program.
Right.
Okay. It's not it's not the academic curricula of the degree curricula of the school. It's a program.
Right.
No white person is being denied enrollment at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
Right.
No white person is being displaced for an African person.
Right.
If the media residency program were dissolved today, it would not add or subtract a single white enrollment at the University of Nebraska.
Right.
In spite of that, in spite of the fact that no white person is being disadvantaged, the insurrectionists assert that the university's creation, ongoing sponsorship, and active promotion of the program violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. In their cynical response to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln's efforts to expand opportunities for those who have been systemically denied opportunities, these plaintiffs, these insurrectionists, are using the remedies to end racist discrimination to actually prevent efforts to undo the effects of this nation's history of racist practices. They go on to say, the insurrectionists say that while the law has been clear for decades that racial discrimination in education is unlawful, this is the racial discrimination being done by them, by the insurrectionists. He says, after the Supreme Court's Harvard decision, we talked about this a few weeks ago, where the affirmative action program at Harvard has been challenged, overturned by the courts. He says, so after the Supreme Court's Harvard decision, there can be no doubt that universities may not take race into account to advance diversity objectives. So if I do a program with a university to help some African people on Jefferson Avenue become better entrepreneurs, so I want to give them some sort of simplified business skills, business knowledge about inputs, interests, planning for savings, safety levels, a whole range of
that they'll be
concepts.
Eligible and productive in the workforce to be able to maybe get a job.
So I target this community because this community has been radically underserved for so long.
Right.
And people didn't even know that they could be served, and they don't have any. There's not enough people that have been involved to incubate this amongst them. So we have to force it. So we're going to develop a program. I get the Urban League and Canisius, to work together to put a program like this together.
Right.
How is that denying any white person any opportunity whatsoever?
Well, in their eyes, it's denying because now you're making these undesirables that we really don't want in our workforce, and now they get a shot where our sons and daughters, our white sons and daughters may not, one of them get in, or one of our sons and daughters may not. That's what it's about.
Well, that's what these people are saying. They're saying, according that he says that is exactly what the University of Nebraska Lincoln's program does. It reserves a spot on program teams for Black students in order to foster diversity, creating a disadvantage and lessening of opportunities for others. If there was no racist stuff going on in Nebraska, they wouldn't have created the program in the first place.
That's right.
It's not like they took money away from a white program to put it into a Black program.
Right.
The entire University of Nebraska was a white program.
Right.
The entire university was a white
and
program.
all they hired probably was white.
Exactly.
And
That's
nobody else.
all they hired, all they enrolled,
And
all they bought
And
services.
their excuse was, well, they don't have the skills. Well, somebody said, oh, well, if we give them the skills, maybe they could get in. Yeah.
Well, if we give them the skills, then we'd have to use them. So if we just don't give them the skills, we don't have to worry about using them.
Exactly.
You know?
That's what it's all about.
Right.
That's what it's about.
So Jacobson said the way the program makes students complicit in discrimination is offensive and troubling. Now, how does it make students complicit in discrimination when this is an off-campus program between a community-based organization and the University of Nebraska? How is that making students at the University of Nebraska complicit in discrimination that you find offensive and troubling? Is it the mere fact that it's a program that targets creating more diversity in the filmmaking business for African people? Is that what makes it offensive? Because that's what it seems like you're saying. If you didn't have discrimination going on for all of these decades and centuries at the University of Nebraska, you would already have 5 or 8 or 10 or 12% of the population, the student population at the University of Nebraska would have been African people in the first place.
Well,
you wouldn't have had to have a program.
A lot of times when I hear these stories, I try to put myself in their shoes, and the only thing I can always come up with is like, oh, our program was fine. We had all the white people that we want, and the undesirables wasn't there. It was great. Why should we mess up a good thing and allow those undesirables to come in? And
now, Willie, it's going to be ugly, but you're talking like the parents at City Honors Academy in the city of Buffalo's public school system.
Oh, really?
See, because Sam Radford and folks have been advocating for creating more space at City Honors because you got a student population in the city of Buffalo that's roughly 63, 64% Black. You got another 10 or 12% of the population that is Hispanic, different versions of Hispanic people.
Right.
And so you got maybe 75, 78% of the population are either Black or Hispanic. You got another 4% of the population that make up a mix of other minorities, Native Americans and foreign-born students and so on. And so only about 18% of the student population is white, yet 60%, 65% of the student population at City Honors is white. So obviously somebody's got some kind of game going on.
Yeah.
So you start saying, well, it's taking a test. You got to take a test in order to get into City Honors.
Right.
Well, it turns out that 67, 68% of the people who take the test pass the test.
Right.
And are in the pool of people who would have been eligible for City Honors enrollment.
Right.
So if 2/3 of the population that's eligible for enrollment, that's passed the test and shown the skill necessary to be able to get into City Honors, if 2/3 of them are Black, how is it that only 20% of the population is Black in that school?
Right.
Somebody's doing something that is, tipping the scale, got the thumb on the scale some kind of way that white students end up being 2 or 3 times more likely to get enrolled at City Honors than Black students are, even though white students are the vast minority population in the city of Buffalo public school population.
In that area, so yeah.
See? So, when you talk to the parents, though, they say, well, I don't want you upsetting the apple cart, saying the same thing that you just said. We got a good situation going on here.
Right.
Parents, talk to the teachers. They talk to the administrators. They talk back to us. We have a lot of affective things that go on to make the program here something that the students like. They like each other. They like the programs.
Right.
And
so it
on.
almost seemed like they're picking the kids from the fluent neighborhood.
The nice kids. The nice
kids from the nice neighborhoods.
Not the players. See, so if you come from the barrio community and you got barrio behavior, like some of us had, and probably still have some that we just don't reveal often.
Even with me, I've come to the conclusion that I'm just not going to be accepted everywhere because of the way I act, the way I look, the way I talk. I noticed some of my counterparts, people of color, if they act a certain way, talk a certain way, they'll be accepted. But
right.
I'm to the conclusion now I won't be accepted in every.
So my point is, it just was picking on what you had stated, that people say, well, I like the program the way it is right now, I don't want to change anything. It's the people that are benefiting from the system the way it is.
Right.
They're the ones who don't want to see the situation change because they're afraid that the change will cause them to lose the characteristics of the school that they like.
Right.
In the school. So I understand, that risk. But my core point is that saying that you can't have a program to help build a cadre of Black people that want to go into the film making business,
right.
For all of those things that they were talking about, being film editors, being a film,
and I'm sure a lot of them.
Right.
Well, here's another thing too that happens, Mr. Hare. Just to let you know, when I was working at Time Warner, there was a program where, and thank God I was able to be one of the engineers in that program, where we took a bunch of IT equipment, computers, so kids could do video editing, what you just said, and I personally installed them in the Buffalo schools. I trained some of the teachers and maybe 1 or 2 students, and I felt like it was a great thing. But then when I came back a year later, and I'm expecting to see all these kids with this knowledge because they had the equipment to work with, here's what the excuse I got. Oh, we didn't have the staff to be able to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what?
So they bought the equipment, and the equipment's being used for other people, but the people that the equipment was supposed to be used for is not being used for them.
Right.
Because, we weren't able to sustain the staff,
Right.
And without the staff,
Which means that most of the teachers there were probably white, because when I went there, it was mostly white. So these white teachers that I taught to train the kids felt like, I don't want to do this no more. Or something.
See, so this is the issue with affirmative action.
Right.
The core issue that I'm trying to get people to understand, the ones that are attacking affirmative action, I'm not a fan of affirmative action per se.
Right.
I'm a fan of giving me back what you stole.
Right.
You stole land. You stole money.
Right.
You stole lives. You raped people. You stole people's history. You took the minds of people out of their heads, and you forced a new creature into their heads called a Negro that didn't even exist, before 1859. The word Negro wasn't even in use until 1859. I think it was Blumenbach was the German anthropologist who came up with that word. Prior to that time, the word had never even been used before. So you've done all of these horrible things to African people, and all that African people are asking is, well, just give us a road to help us to get back where we would have been if you hadn't done all this stuff to us. That's what African people are actually asking for. They're not asking for gold. They're not asking for, some extraordinary thing. They're saying that if you had not done these despicable things to us as a people, we would be in a completely different place economically, educationally, socially, culturally, and so on in this country. So all African people are asking for is for the government of the United States, which legally did these things to African people, for the government of the United States to help create a road, a pathway that would allow people, if they follow the pathway over the next 50, 60, 80, 100 years, they'll get caught up substantively to where they would have been if this horror had not happened this to us. The Holocaust had not happened to us. That's what this is really up. Why would you not want to do that? That's all I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Now, if you call it affirmative action, if you call it, special programs, if you call it, giving Black people 4 bootstraps to pull themselves up instead of 2, and that's what it's. I don't care what you call it.
Right.
You owe it.
Right.
You did it. I didn't do it to myself. You did it to me.
Well, the problem is that even when you look back in history, even when we do get a chance to pull up, by a bootstrap and create something, it's always some people that wants to destroy it, or even in the sense of where I felt like, oh, we putting these computers in schools, these kids gonna learn the skill, yeah, baby. People drop the ball. They drop the ball. They somehow destroy. So yeah, you'll get a handful. You'll get a 1 or 2
that'll find their way through.
Way through, and then they'll go, oh yeah, see, we doing a great thing,
right? And they become the proof,
right?
That the model that they created works and whatnot, right? So listen, we only got about 5 minutes left, and I wanted to share something with good news. Sometimes you got to have good news stories,
thank you for
right?
some good news. Yeah.
So the good news story is we've been talking about this issue with renewable energy, and one of the issues with renewable energy is the kind of things that we do that are renewable require you catching something in motion, creating energy out of it, and then being able to capture and store that energy so that you can use it at a later point. Because you don't need the same amount of energy all the time in your energy system in your country. So just to make it simple, let's suppose that as a country we use 10 megawatts of energy. But out of those 10, let's say 24 megawatts of energy. But out of those 24 megawatts of energy, at 2 o'clock in the morning, we're only using a half a megawatt. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're using 2 megawatts. And then at 6 o'clock in the evening, we're only using a half a megawatt, and so on, right? So you need a system that can store energy that you have developed the ability to produce until you actually need the system. That seems to be the issue, right? With wind power and solar power,
right.
Geothermal power. What do you do to be able to keep the energy until you're ready to use it? Your batteries can only absorb so much energy, then they can't absorb any more. So it winds up leaking the energy back into the air.
Right.
So a new science has come along. Something called cement energy.
Nice.
Trust me on this. A team of MIT researchers has figured out a way to create a supercapacitor simply by mixing cement, the binding ingredient of concrete, and a fine charcoal product called carbon black together with water. Better yet, this mixture could allow a home to store a full day's worth of energy in its foundation, potentially paving the way to an efficient renewable energy storage solution that doesn't rely on mining rare earth metals. Roads made up of the material could even power electric cars wirelessly. In other words, you make the roads out of this material, then you run your electric cars over the road, and you get your power from the road. Right. You can't get any sweeter than that. Right. The material is fascinating, according to Admir Masick, author at MIT. He says because you have the most used man-made material in the world, cement, that is combined with carbon black, that is a well-known historical material. Even the Dead Sea Scrolls are written are stored in something that is essentially the same as concrete. Wow. You got concrete everywhere.
Everywhere. So that means we can build roads and houses, and that stuff will be storing energy where we can save for later.
Think about a whole city.
Yeah, that's
built
awesome.
out of concrete.
That's awesome.
And you don't need any plugs. You just take your light bulb and plug it into the wall.
That's awesome.
Right? Your dishwasher, your power's right there.
Because the sun is giving energy and it's storing it up. Yep. And as long as we got the sun going, we got energy.
This is sweet. Now they got batteries and capacitors that can perform the same function of storing energy, but they do so in fundamentally different ways. The batteries can distribute energy linearly through a chemical reaction, while capacitors release energy in bursts by storing energy as an electrostatic field. But the supercapacitors build on this ability by delivering energy at much faster rates than the average battery, which is also the source of their biggest drawback, the inability to release the charge slowly. So what they're working on is the ability to store the power and then release the power in a controlled way where
Right.
it doesn't go burst out all at one time.
Right.
You know, and once they get that solved, this is going to be available to us.
Well,
Now,
but I think that also means you got to build infrastructures that can hold the energy.
Yep.
So you will have to build those infrastructures.
well, you're going to have to rebuild anyway. No matter
Right.
what we do, you
Right.
got to rebuild.
Right.
So if we rebuild stuff that is going to be of itself the storage unit for all
Right.
of the power that we learned how to generate,
Right.
this got to be to make us the most energy efficient you could possibly be in this country. Would liberate us from
Right.
from foreign oil and
Right.
other.
The only thing I
natural
can think
gas.
of though, like let's say you got a building that's storing all this stuff, and then you can control and get it. The thing I'm worried about is because you got all that energy, there might be something that actually will activate that energy and make it.
You think,
That's the only thing
you
I'm
think it
thinking.
might all explode?
Yeah, that's the only that's something out there that will.
I thought about that too, and the article doesn't address that. But I'm pretty sure that they're working on this as a part of the overall model. You don't want to have a city of 500,000 people
Right.
that could blow up, you know. Right.
Right, that's
So they're working on this, but it's good news.
It is good
because
news.
we've been talking about technology was going to be the way out of the crisis
Right.
for this, climate, warming of the climate and these other, exhausting our fossil fuels and whatnot.
Right.
And it looks like we're on the pathway. We're not there yet, but it looks like we're on the pathway of technology getting us out of the wilderness.
Right.
So thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. We really look forward to talking to you all on Friday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. We will see you all then.
disorders and advanced mental wellness.
If you or someone you love needs help, you are not alone. Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org.